Christmas holiday. Welcome back to Detroit Wants to Know. I have one of my sponsors with me tonight, and the reason why I have him here is I want you to hear how not to become a party casualty. Ven Johnson. First of all, let's talk about when you're hosting a party, can you get sued? You're hosting a Christmas party. There are a bunch of them going on.
The answer is, Steve, of course you can get sued, but under Michigan law, no, you cannot be held liable whatsoever.
So if I pour Billy Bob too much moonshine, I cannot be held liable if he goes and kills somebody?
Believe it or not, that's true. Only a bar can, only what's called in a dram shop action where there's actually an individual or a company that owns a liquor license. They're the only ones under Michigan law that can be sued. Most people don't know that. Most people would be scared by that, but no, you would be let out of that lawsuit. You would get out long before any jury
So they
trial.
Wouldn't go after my home insurance or anything?
They'd try, but the answer is they wouldn't get there. No, sir.
Wow. Wow. Okay, other things happen at Christmas parties. What if you get sick off the food you're eating at a Christmas party? What happens then?
Then you might have checked how much you had to drink first. Secondly, obviously there can be situations where restaurants have been sued in our area where there are E. coli and just nasty stuff that is going on where people got incredibly ill. But the majority of situations like that, if someone only gets ill and they go home and take care of that on their own, we won't go into graphics how, there's really not going to be a whole lot that you can sue. But if it happens where it's happened across here in the Detroit metropolitan area at a few restaurants and across the country where folks get deathly ill and serious injury, then you would have potential liability for serving what's called an adulterated food. It's strict liability, meaning it's your fault no matter what. You sold it, they ate it, your fault under Michigan law.
Well, let's talk about another type of party casualty. There are going to be a lot of office parties coming up after this show airs all the way up to Christmas because Christmas doesn't hit till a Saturday. So there are going to be office parties next week.
Right.
Sexual harassment at a Christmas party after somebody gets drunk. What goes on there? I mean, you never hear. I mean, I wish it would happen to me. It's never happened to me, but I wish it would happen. But
I did see a lot of things between your guests, but I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about this.
Are they hot or what?
They're sweet.
Ooh.
Sweet. The fact of the matter is this: sexual harassment under Michigan law is something that an employer has to worry about. And in order for there to be a liability under civil law in Michigan, there has to be notice, and it has to be usually ongoing, I'll call it abusive behavior.
But wait a minute, what if a boss hits on his secretary, says, I really want some dictation at this,
I have no idea what you're talking about right now, but go ahead.
Well, no, but let's just say he goes after the boss. I mean, he goes after the secretary and says, I really want something to happen here. I'm attracted to you. You're my wife at work. Let's consummate it. And she feels sexually harassed at that Christmas party. Can she sue?
Of course she can sue. Question is, how successful will that lawsuit be? Under Michigan law, with there being, quote, only one contact, albeit that contact not being appropriate, that would not be the strongest of cases. Under Michigan law, you have to have an ongoing hostile environment, in other words, repeated contacts, and not just contacts, but serious stuff going on, for there to be what I would call a very substantial or high-risk case.
Okay.
Still is not a good idea. Can you be sued? You're going to ask me. The answer is, of course, you can be. Any employer under Michigan law should know better. And not only can they have civil liability, but they can also go through the Civil Rights Commission in Lansing. They could be written up and they could be fined. It's not a very wise thing to do in this day and age, obviously. Nor was it ever, for that matter.
Okay, let's say by some miracle, before we go to break, let's just say by some miracle, it snows. Somebody has a Christmas party. And Jim Bob has had too much to drink, and he slips on the step and cracks his head. Can he sue that homeowner?
He can try. Under Michigan law. It doesn't look very good. There's a thing called open and obvious. That is a whole nother program I would love to bore you with someday, Steve. But the answer is, under Michigan law, the way it currently is, if it's there to be seen, you should have seen it. It's your own fault. And basically, those cases get thrown out of court.
So if I see ice on a step
and
I still fall.
Even if you don't. They've actually held, the Michigan Supreme Court has actually held that a lady who was blind that fell into a hole in a parking lot because any other reasonable person who wasn't blind would have seen it, they threw that case out of court. Welcome to Michigan.
Ven, that's horrible. People fall into holes all the time. My father tells this story about a funeral he did, and it was in the winter. And the funeral director was late, so he's running across the cemetery, and all of a sudden they see him fall into a hole. Oh! Could that guy have sued?
Well, again, the answer is he could have, and probably under Michigan law would have been thrown out of court.
Wow. Suing for falling to a grave. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Ven Johnson, that phone number again.
855-VEN-FIGHTS.
We'll be right back. Let me introduce you to a young man.
It's another Christmas holiday.